Hello.
Hey, Justin, it's Rowan from Silver Tiger Media. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Absolutely excellent. Thank you very much for your time to chat, mate.
No problem, dude. Good to talk to you.
Oh, look, we're thrilled that you're coming out to see us, and with Pennywise, and only a couple of weeks away. Thank you, man.
Yeah, man. I'm thrilled too. I'm really excited.
It should be great. I was lucky enough to speak with Pat back in April, and he said you might be coming out soon, and here we are. It's brilliant. Look, I've got to talk.
That's how it goes sometimes. It's awesome.
Absolutely. I've got to chat to you a bit, if I could, about American Spring. Congratulations. What a sensational album.
Cool. Thanks so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm really happy with it. You know, we worked hard, and I'm really happy with the result.
Oh, it's brilliant. There's a distinct maturity to this album and to your sound. Was it different to create this as opposed to previous works?
Well, every record's different, you know, and I hope that there would be a maturity because we've been a band for a long time. So, you know, almost like if we haven't matured to a certain degree, then, you know, I'd be a little worried about us. But I absolutely believe that, you know, this record, though, it was a very, very methodical, thought-out record. You know, and we had certain goals that we wanted to achieve with the record, and I feel like we surpassed them very easily. You know, we were really focused on what we were about to create and the direction in which we wanted to take it. And, yeah, I think that this is sort of a tent-pole record where, you know, you can hang your hat on it and say this record was a turning point for the band. And you know, we've had other records like that. I think that The Terror State was also a record like that for us, and that was about 10 years ago, you know. So it's exciting when you have a marker in your history that you've turned a corner or turned a new leaf, and this record's definitely one of those for us. So that's an exciting thing, and it's you know, it's still Anti-Flag by far. I mean, it sounds like Anti-Flag. It is Anti-Flag, but it's but we did push ourselves to be more creative, to find new ways to take, you know, to find new directions to take a song, and because ultimately, to me, I mean, I think that you want to be the band that you are. You want to stay true to your identity as a band, but by the same token, to make this the same record over and over again is very boring. You know, So we always push ourselves when we make a new record to find ways to be creative, and I feel like we did that on this record.
You did indeed, and look right down to the cover art. It's brilliant. It's quite confronting to look at it because most people see the violence in the image. Do you think we're preconditioned en masse now to associate the burqa with violence?
Well, you know, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's a big part of the message that we're trying to put forward. You know, is that, you know, we're not programmed as, you know, we're not programmed by nature to look at things and see violence. You know, it's something that we learn, and we've been socialized so much in our cultures to associate certain images or certain signs with violence, and you know, I think that there's so much xenophobia, there's so much bigotry. Yeah, I mean, we definitely are living in this culture where, you know, people take symbols and they immediately prescribe violence towards them, and you know, and it's amazing. I mean, we actually see some of our politicians now with this crisis in Europe with the refugee crisis. I mean, there are politicians saying things like, you know, our country won't accept people unless they're Christian. You know, and you know, there's so much division, and so much bigotry, and definitely we're trying to point out to people with the artwork and the record, the idea that there's a lot behind that burqa, or, there's a person behind that policeman suit, or behind that hoodie, or behind that soldier's uniform, that just because a person, it's the old adage, don't judge a book by its cover. There's a lot more to human beings than what's underneath the uniform or the dress that they're wearing.
Indeed, and that spreads beautifully through Fabled World, because it's such an important observation of the American dream, and certainly translates to Australian society. Do you think people will wake up? Do you think we'll ever understand what we're doing and how we interact?
Yeah, I do, because I see it all the time. I see people have awakenings all the time. It's amazing being in a band like Anti-Flag. You are lucky enough to interact with a lot of different people, and you're lucky enough to have people tell you their story. And so often I have people come up to me and say things like, I found your band and it changed the way I see the world. It changed who I am today. And obviously that's a great compliment, and it's really exciting for me. But more than that, I mean, it just gives me hope to the fact that when people encounter creative ideas, or when people encounter a new way of looking at things, it helps people to see the world in a different light and to be able to change. And ultimately, when we started Anti-Flag, that's all I wanted to do, was present a different viewpoint that isn't always in the mainstream. And I hope that point of view that we present could influence people in a positive way. And I'm really hoping so, because we can't stop this contemporary trait to justify violence in the name of peace. Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it's really. I mean, more than anything, I think we can trace all of these, almost all violence back to money, right? I mean, right now we have a class war taking place, and we have the quote in our booklet by Warren Buffett, where he talks about, he says, yeah, there's a class war taking place, and it's my class, the rich class, that's winning. I mean, I think ultimately, whether it's politicians or corporations or corporate CEOs or the billionaire class, I mean, and the people who serve them, violence serves their goal of taking power and stealing wealth. Yeah. And so it really boils down to money in a lot of cases, and so what we really need is some wealth equality, but we also need to look at the roots of where does all this inequality come from, and I would make the argument that it comes from those who are seeking wealth and power. And fair enough too. And look, I can't help but go back to the days when you and Pat were playing soccer together and generally bonding as a couple of outcasts, I guess you would say. What cemented that bond for so long? Well, I think that we were very different. I mean, Pat was definitely more accepted because he was like he was a really great athlete, and he and I was kind of just like this total like outcast, punk rock kid. Yeah. So and Pat was a kid who, growing up, I was already on my way to being an outcast, like kind of by choice, where Pat was, I don't think it ever even occurred to Pat to be an outsider, but what was interesting about Pat was that at some point he could see that the ideas that were being fed to him about being popular or, doing what everybody else was doing, it just struck him, I think, at some point in his life as like, that's not important to me. There's other things that are more interesting and more important. And that was where Pat and I really clicked, especially as teenagers. And yeah, we met through soccer, but we came at things from a very different point of view. But I think because Pat and I came across each other and I was doing something that was totally out of Pat's norm, I think he found that really interesting. And Pat's really intelligent, and so he just, he gravitated towards that. And so at some point I think he said, like, well, I'm going to try this other thing because it's not what anybody else I know is doing. And so then, of course, we were just growing up in an area and in a place where there wasn't anyone else who was willing to take a step outside of the mainstream and try something new. So we almost were forced to be friends and hang out with each other. It was like there was no choice,
Which is interesting in itself that you've come to very much the same conclusions over the years. It's incredible. Do you find a lot of fan positive feedback coming back to you more from a political commentary point of view than a music point of view?
Both. Yeah, it's pretty. But yeah, I would say a little bit more because of the political point of view. But but then people come and rock out to the song. So it's a little bit of both. But definitely, I think in a world that I feel like is very vacant in the area of socialism or wealth equality or equality and justice for all people, regardless of their skin color, their nationality, their sex, whether they're black, white. In a world that's very vacant, with sort of ideas of equality for all people, I feel like when people who have similar ideas to the four of us in the anti-flag, when they find the anti-flag, the message is really important to them because they're living in a place where they feel like they're on the outside and maybe feeling alone. And I think when you find an anti-flag record, it gives you an opportunity to know that, oh, wow, I'm not alone in my ideas.
Oh, definitely. There's such a camaraderie within your music, and to give people that voice, if you like, even though it's coming through you guys, is so important. As I say, we're so excited that you're coming out to see us again with Pennywise. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to catch up with you guys in Melbourne.
Yeah, for sure, man. Definitely tap me on the shoulder and say hi. And you know what I think is really exciting and important? I was just thinking about this as we were talking, and what I think is amazing is that there was a time when a lot of the ideas that we had with the anti-flag were considered by the mainstream to be really outrageous, right? And, a lot of these ideas now are just taken for granted as mainstream, and especially in the realm of homophobia and racism and sexism. When we started the band, racism, sexism, homophobia, those things were just rampant in our society. Yeah. And, now we see marriage equality in the United States. I know Australia's got some work to do. But, racism is just not something that is openly accepted anymore. Sexism is an issue that people are more and more aware of. And I just find it really interesting that, when you're people that are willing to take a stand on something that seems really outrageous, it's amazing how far ahead of the curve you can be. And I think that punk rock has always been really far ahead of the curve, and I'm just really thankful to be a part of that community and know that there's other people out there who don't have their knuckles dragging on the ground, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the cool part about what we do is, you know, when we get to travel to a place like Australia on the other side of the world and know that, wow, there's other people in the world who feel the same way, who are working on these issues too. And that's what gives me hope for not just our own country, but for the entire planet.
Absolutely, and beautifully put. Well, I can guarantee you in Australia we won't give you any reception like the 2008 Republican National Conference or the National Convention. That was 60s shit right there.
Yeah, I thought we were going to jail for sure, but we survived it.
Oh, wonderful stuff. Look, with such a tremendous catalogue at your disposal now, what can we expect from your show coming up? A little bit of mix of old and new?
Yeah, total mix, and you know, we're gonna play a lot of songs from the new record, so I hope the people know them, and we're really excited about coming. I mean, our sets are always high energy, and you know, our shows are always a place where everybody is welcomed, and you know, everybody should have a chance to have a good time, and you know, that's what we focus on at our shows. They're a celebration of our community and an opportunity for everyone to have a really, really great night and be accepted for who they are, you know, and so for me, I'm really excited for that.
Absolutely, me too, mate. And luckily, it's only the end of the month because I want it to happen tomorrow night.
Right. Right on.
Luke, I realise I've taken you over time and I could talk to you literally for ages. I'm going to try and hit you up for a face-to-face when you get here. It's such a pleasure to speak with you, and thank you very much for your time.
Hey, right back at you, brother. Take good care and definitely come track me down when we're in Melbourne.
Fantastic. We'll look forward to it. Thanks very much again and travel safe.
Thanks, bro. Good night.
Good night.